Welcome back to another episode of the Sunshine Affair. So, if you notice I am alone on the couch, that's because we have an important solo topic I'd like to go over today. But before we begin into the nitty gritty, I have a rhetorical question I'd like to pose for you. Because we are on the eve of International Women's Day, I am recording this on 3/6, and International Women's Day is 3/8. I pose to you a question. When did radical womanhood become a sin? So, when you think about the answer to that question, right, I want you to also consider if you would believe me if I told you that centering patriarchy was embedded in us since we were young. So let's start with the facts, right? We look at religion, and I know I am not the biggest fan of religion, at least in the organized sense, because I do feel as though everybody got it right. It's just a matter of how you tell the stories. So, organized religion, I'm not a big fan because it just feels like a bunch of rules. Whereas if you pull from the chakras, or if you pull from Chinese philosophy, even if you pull from some early American philosophy, even European philosophy, if you apply all of these different aspects to your life, I do believe that you will still reap the benefits in the afterlife or in wherever you believe our souls go after we die. With that being said, and my stance on that being what it is, would you believe me if I told you that we've been centering men and the patriarchy since we were young? A very basic breakdown of theocracy and politics and war. At the center, it all just culminates into the meanings behind the cross and, the masculine principles and stuff like that, right? So if we look at modern day religion, at least because I grew up in a Christian household, this is where I'm pulling my information from. You see the cross, obviously, that's what we're all familiar with. The emphasis on the words he, him, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, however much you know about Christianity versus however much you don't know. This centers the birth of a man. Like, it's almost as if it was incentivized, right? So the gift of God is the presence of a man. This is how I see it. And then if you look at other religions or other ways of life, they center fertility or almost like the interworkings of a womb. So I say this specifically when I'm comparing it to the cross versus the ankh. So when we're looking at the ankh, we see the womb as a portal, definitely centers fertility, and I would almost say that it's worthy of being considered a deity because in ancient civilizations, they did have matrilineal lineages and they had matriarchy, and a matriarchy is a social system where women, most likely elders or mothers, people who have bear children, hold the primary power, and this being politics, this being land, this being their society and their community. So now that I look at it, we're currently in a patriarchy, and in order to decenter the patriarchy, we must move through life knowing that the womb is a portal. The womb is not just home for having babies. The womb is not just where we're capable of bearing children or giving birth. Like, there are so many other occupations outside of being a mom, especially once you already have the child. Like, now you take on the role of being their teacher, the role of being their guide. Like, sometimes moms don't have all the answers. I actually just finished watching Bridgerton season 4. So hopefully by the time you listen to this or watch this, you have caught up. But all I'm saying is season 4 of Bridgerton definitely emphasizes on the roles of women in society. Although their queen is literally an African American woman, from our eyes, it just looks like a bunch of races that intermix with each other. But because Bridgerton is set in the time that it's set in, there's still these societal rules that they need to fulfill. So to continue on, I could go on my rant about how stolen fertility is all that the cross shows, because at the top of the ankh, we see that there's a circle, right? And that circle represents the womb. But we see now in modern day Christianity and Catholicism, we see the cross, and the cross emphasizes, like I mentioned before, those more so masculine principles, and it definitely emphasizes like the husband's role versus the wife's role, and almost facilitates patriarchy in a way because we're taught to put the male gaze at a precedent. And this is where I'm telling you it's okay to stop. When looking at it through the lens that I look at it, it's definitely instilling like fear and almost dehumanizes our accomplishments, both men and women, because we always talk about how we wouldn't be able to do this without Jesus, and how we wouldn't be able to complete the task that we do. While I will acknowledge that there is definitely a higher power, I can't say that Christianity got it 100% right. How can you worship a man, but then in the same breath put down women? Like a couple of years ago, actually, I found myself in this relationship, right? And in this relationship, I was dating a man who was coming into faith, and he was going through a path where he wanted to step up and be the man in his life for the woman. And you know me, I'm not about to just sit back and let you lead me any old way. So we bumped heads on that. And then this one quote he sent me from the Bible, I kid you not, it was the man should be above the wife, and then below the man is the wife, and then below are the children. And then I'm like, I don't know if the whole objective of having a family that's well put together is to prioritize the man. So that's just a little tidbit that I wanted to add regarding that. But then there's also things like the freaking Handmaid's Tale. Like, you mean to tell me that all those years ago when the Handmaid's Tale was written, now we have a visualizer of it. I haven't finished the series, but I did start it. And all I'm saying is it's starting to look like a bunch of BS too. Like, these are the lengths in which, like, of course, the Handmaid's Tale is quote unquote fiction, but is it really? Because if we let patriarchy continue to go the direction that it is and continue to roll into the huge snowball that it is, then it's literally eventually going to just explode and we'll all be covered in snow. And I don't want to be covered in snow. So we have to stop patriarchy at the root. And in order to do that, we have to come back in contact with what it means to be a woman, what radical womanhood and womanism means to us. So this International Women's History Month, I'm giving you permission to live in your radical womanhood. And in order to do that, we have to be keen to the history that we have not necessarily been taught, right? Like we've been taught to centralize the patriarchy without them having even said the words patriarchy. Like, it wasn't until I got to college that I realized what the patriarchy really was and how it shapes society, at least American society. So now moving forward with my research and my opinions, I can comfortably say that if we lived in a matriarchy, we would be so much further. Let's get into the fact that patriarchy depicted in fiction like Bridgerton and The Handmaid's Tale, it shows us degradation of women's ability to conceive. So it's almost like when we see a woman, we value her as to whether she's able to conceive or not. And I feel as though women's roles in society are much more important, and we play much more prominent roles, especially when it comes to cultivating community and those relationships necessary to have a functioning society. Our ability to conceive also gets us caught up with tying our work and our value to fertility. Like, I've met a bunch of women who have had complications giving birth, or who have had complications even getting pregnant. And so much of that is wrapped up in their identity and stuff like that. And I'm like, no way, you have this little nigga in your belly, not even yet, and he's taking away so much worth from you. And it's just like little stuff like that makes me realize that a woman's sole role in society is definitely not to stay at home and cook and clean and take care of the kids. We don't give women enough credit for the things that they endure and the fact that they come home and endure some more. By centering men, this is a distraction, because we're taught that, oh, you have to have a husband, you have to give birth, you have to take care of your kids. Where's the fun in that? Like, no tea, no shade, but how are you able to successfully and fully be present in your life if your main goal is to wed and give birth? Like, that just doesn't sit right with me. So I won't be that type of woman, and I'm letting you know that you don't have to be that type of woman. There's no particular type of woman that is being acceptable or being agreeable all the time. Like, if we look at men, we normally gauge it off to, oh, there's just boys being boys. But when it comes to women, oh, she's just on her period. Like, men don't even know to the full extent what menstruation even is. They don't know that it's multiple cycles that lead up to menstruation. They don't know that when you give birth, that's the closest that you can come to death. And they'll just hail it off out to, oh, you know what? She's just a mom, or, oh, she just gave birth. Women, my ancestors, slaves, women who were, and not even indentured slaves, women who were cogs in the machine, whose only job during slavery were to breed. Like, time and time and time again, that's trauma. We don't talk about the trauma that women go through when it comes to giving birth, when it comes to separating yourself. Like, I was actually looking at, when I was doing my research for this podcast, I was looking at this Instagram page of this birthing center. They're called Wave Work Birthing, and they created a carousel post where they explained how childbirth is a psychedelic pharmacology written into flesh. So we're literally sitting here having a piece of ourselves being ripped away from us. And I say us as if I'm a mom, but I'm not a mom, but I plan on being a mom. But I'm just saying this to say that we diminish what women go through on a day-to-day basis and then still expect us to show up as contributing members of society, whether that's at home taking care of the kids or whether that's showing up to work every day. Like, we literally just expect women to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Black women especially. Like, you have no choice but to show up and be the best. You have no choice but to come in and have all the answers. But it's like, when we feel like we don't have the answers, who do we go to? So this is me bringing in a call to action to avoid the over-sexualization of our girls and the very fact that women are worth much more than their womb. In order to move through with this same energy, we have to break the cycle. Like, you have to be able to decide if you want to have kids and then educate our youth whether they want to have kids or not. And this involves both boys and girls. Like, when it comes to parenting, it shouldn't just solely be put on one parent or the other. Like, it's a joint decision. Like, to bring a child into this world is a collective decision. It could be a village decision. Like, they say it takes a village to raise a child. Children in general, like, they need like different masculine and they also need feminine energy. This is why it creates balance in our children. But if there's an imbalance, then we see, you see those women who take on those more masculine roles in their relationship, or you see men who feel more comfortable like falling back in their relationship and stuff like that. While every individual has their own personality traits and have gone through their own version of nature versus nurture, we still have the basic facts that masculine and feminine energy must be balanced in order for all life to coexist. And in order to continue with that philosophy, the only option for that is to indulge in your dreams. We're taught that in life you could have kids or no kids. And then you have this web, right? So it's like, if you're a mom, all that's encompassing of is whether you want to be a wife, but then you have the questions of whether you want to have a career, whether you want to travel, whether you want to show up in your children's lives a specific way that you want to. And then you have the path of going with no kids. And same thing, like, you can have a career. What would you do with your free time? Like, oh, aren't you lonely and stuff like that? And then you also have the aspect of whether you'll find love or not, because you're worried about your partner wanting kids as well. So then it's like, now we're also trying to navigate the dating world. Like, once a woman decides whether or not she wants to have kids, she can comfortably move through her life and make her own decisions and alchemize whatever she wants. But in all of this, we're also forgetting that between being a mom and not being a mom, there's this infinite potential to be whatever the fuck you want. Like literally, whether you have kids at a young age or whether you have kids in your early to mid 30s, it should never stop you from following your dreams. And in order to do this, the question is how? We must believe in our intuition. We must honor both our feminine and masculine energies that I mentioned before, and not allow the patriarchy to prevent us from actualizing our innermost desires, inherently condemning what it means to be a woman. Like, I take pride in my womanhood. Like, I know that I'm capable of having spouts or having an attitude and stuff like that. So, not even saying that those are just the traits that are attributed to women. There's also the feminine aspect of having maternal instincts, you know, being good with children and, you know, being one with the environment and the world around us. Like, all of these are feminine aspects that I feel as though are important, but then it's also the masculine aspects. Like, are you able to lead? Are you able to move with logic and not emotion and stuff like that? And that's when the patriarchy tells us no. Like, no, women can't do this. A woman can't do this job. We saw it not too long ago. Kamala Harris, she ran for president, and majority of the women that didn't vote for her said that they didn't vote for her because they believe a woman could not do the job. And that fact then and there shows just how far we've strayed from our matriarchal past, right? Like I mentioned before, civilizations like thousands of years ago thrived when it came to having matriarchs. Like, they were the strongest soldiers. They were able to lead the entire society. They would take armies with them and travel from place to place and be able to win these wars and be able to gain land and whatever else people used to go to war for. But nowadays it just seems like money, but especially the fact that we're in war. But that aside, it's really important that we realize that there's so much more to being a woman, and that's outside of being a mom. I mentioned before the wave work birthing. Their philosophy is childbirth is psychedelic pharmacology written into flesh. So this carousel, they broke it down. How each contraction is equivalent to altered perception, dissolving of identity, and rewiring our reality, right? So this is with each contraction. You know how many times they tell you to breathe in between contractions? So this is like literally on the brink. It's bringing us to the brink of death. Every time that we try to push, every time that we breathe, like giving birth is the closest a person can come to death. And then we think about all of like the different things that they tell us about childbirth, right? They say, oh, oxytocin is just a bonding chemical, when really it silences fear. It circuits and softens the cervix collagen, and it hydrates the fascia, primes our receptors in our uterus. Like, all of this stuff is more than just a bonding chemical. And then we look at the endorphins. They're like, oh, that helps you with your adrenaline. That helps you with the pain relief, right? But what this really is, it's helping us release with every contraction, and it's also numbing and distorting time, leaving us in a trance-like state. Like, I've never given birth myself, but having conversations with other moms, I can tell that once you give birth, like, you don't leave giving birth the same person. Giving birth is a reality altering type of like psychedelic experience, and it's really just flat out in front of us. Like, we don't give moms enough credit because we think that they just get pregnant for 9 months, but it's still stuff that happens after those 9 months. Like, now you have to successfully raise a child. You have to make sure that responsibilities are also considering the livelihood of this child that you just gave birth to. And then just to finish the last little tidbit of the wave work birthing, their philosophy, the last part is they don't see adrenaline as just something that just happens. It's not like a form of stress, right? It's a chemical reaction, and it involves ejection reflex, ego panic, and it's, like I mentioned before, it's the closest to death a human can come. So It's dealing with peak stress during giving birth. It's undergoing labor in doses. It's not just, oh, I'm going to be pushing for hours. It's literally like, okay, I'm take a breath. And then, oh my God, I have to have contractions. Like, it's literally an outer body experience, but you're opening up a portal and allowing life to come from you. I read this thing not too long ago, and it said that men created religion because women create life. And low-key, that kind of clocked my tea, because I'm like, I've been trying to verbalize my stance of being anti-religion, and I feel as though religion was definitely created in the grander scheme of things to control us. And it starts with dehumanizing the woman and removing her from the power that she holds within her womb. So to continue on, I want to highlight some important words and definitions that I feel as though we should take with us. The word radical, as defined by Angela Davis, simply means to grab something by the root. So when I say what happened to radical womanhood, what happened to just being a proud woman? What happened to not caring if your hair grows in your armpits? What happened to not shaving all the time? Like, what happened to being kind and being in community and being one with nature? Like, all of these aspects are what it means to be a woman. Like, you embrace the fact that we shed blood and shed our cervix because that's what we're being of service to. Like, we rarely ever acknowledge the fact that women lose pieces of themselves each month. We shed entire blood, like we shed entire walls of blood and stuff each month. So it's like, we need to give women credit where the credit is due. And I gave us a definition of matriarchy before, and now let's get into, right, because I feel as though whenever we have conversations like this, there's always the, well, what about men? And it's like, not saying that men don't go through their fair share of stuff either. Like, also, men have like this inherent, like, I have to lead, I have to provide. But when we look back at it, women are more suitable and capable of undergoing extreme levels of stress once they're regulated. It all comes down to nervous system regulation. And I talk about this all the time. Like, with a regulated nervous system, women can make good decisions. But because we're constantly put in situations where it's like, you have to worry about the kids, you have to do this, you have to do that, like wearing so many hats, like we don't have time to regulate our nervous system. So I guess that's why men believe that women lead with emotion and are not good decision makers. Although every woman that I've been around, like the women that I grew up around in my life, like have been excellent leaders and excellent decision makers. So whenever I see like those opinions, it just never really hits my ears the right way, because I know a bunch of women capable of doing what a man can do and more. But it's important that from this podcast, we don't take away the fact that, oh, she's saying women are better than men. It's important to realize that if we were started off on a equal playing field, that women wouldn't be seen as the lesser. I can confidently say that women have a lot more capabilities than we give them credit for. Therefore, because men got a leg up with patriarchy, women are just now coming from the ground up, and it's like building, and we're like forced to refine our power and, use that energy in the ways that supports us the most. Another definition that I wanted to go over is misandry versus misogyny. Misandry is you are content with showing prejudice towards men. And then misogyny, on the other hand, is the same thing. You are content with showing hatred towards women. And while this is a very blanket definition, you can clearly and distinctively understand when a man is being misogynist versus when a woman is being a misandrist. I feel as though the word misandrist was created because men needed a reason to feel bad for themselves. Like, at the end of the day, the American system we live under is a patriarchy. And if men did not want the weight of the world on their shoulders, you would think that they would share that weight with the women, right? But no, it's just a matter of pulling yourself together by your bootstraps, I guess, and realizing that women contribute way more than just children. And that's just how I move through life. Like, I don't ever think, like, ever since I was young, I was never taught that, oh, girls can't do this, boys should do that. And although there were a bunch of like depictions, like in the stuff that I watched, like Disney princesses, for example, like there's always like a king that she's striving for, or there's always like an insecurity that she has to get over. Like those fairy tales and whatever fiction that we grew up ingesting ultimately plays out in the way that we show up in our society and in the world. So I grew up knowing that I'm just as good as any boy. I was fighting boys in the schoolyard when it was recess time. Like, just always realized that whatever boy can do, I can do. And I was just grew up that way because that's how the woman in my life raised me to be. And then as I got older, once I started dating both men and women, because I am a pansexual individual, I do not necessarily think that gender takes precedent over how I believe you can show up for me in a relationship. And at this moment, I am in a very happy and loving relationship with a man who recognizes that as well. I would not be with him if he did not recognize that women also contribute a lot more to daily life than children and whatever duties are expected of a wife. But saying all that to say, when it comes to the capability of a woman, it should never be scaled next to the capability of a man. Like, what women are capable of doing almost exceeds what men are capable of doing, for the simple fact that we're able to create life. And that's just how I feel. I kind of wanted to pivot over from definitions. I wanted to pivot over to some quotes that I find definitely necessary when it came to my research in doing this for this podcast. So I just recently finished The Alchemist. And when I tell you, that book was definitely life-changing for me. Like, I understood, at least for the most part, I believed I understood what alchemy was before reading it, but not realizing that the true meaning of alchemy is one's ability to create, like literally simply creating, whether you can take that as a metaphysical sense or in a physical sense. Like, we create our reality, whether we're a man or a woman. So it's important for us to not dehumanize women in their efforts, especially when it comes to serving a man. Like, a woman's sole occupation in life is not to serve a man. It is to serve her community. It is to serve her environment. It is all these aspects of what womanhood to me has nothing to do with our ability to serve a man. And that's all the patriarchy is, right? So it's telling us you have to serve the male gaze. You have to make sure that you're thinking like a man. Like, that whole movie, like, guys, you ever watch Think Like a Man? Like, that's literally like indoctrination, trying to get us to realize that in order to move through life, you have to have the confidence of an average white man. And stuff like that just never really sat right with me, because I'm like, I don't ever want to strive to be a man. Like, Bruce Jenner didn't even want to be a man. He literally became Caitlyn Jenner because he realized that women have the upper hand in this life. Or actually, I don't know. I haven't sat down and talked to Bruce Jenner. But what I will say is Bruce Jenner saw something in womanhood and believed that that was something that was worthy of being reaped. Not encouraging every man go out and go get them a set of titties or anything. But what I will say is that when it comes to being a woman, it definitely helps to know that your emotions are valid. It definitely helps to know that you can be in community with other women who go through similar stuff like this. So I leave you with a quote from The Alchemist. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. So this specific quote from The Alchemist I am leaving with you today is because whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of doing and what you're capable of not doing. if you want to create your own reality, it's literally up to you. And don't let anybody stop you from doing it. I want us to end with a mantra. So, everyone, I would like for you to repeat after me. I live comfortably in my womanhood. Go ahead. You go ahead and say that. Let's do it again. I show up comfortably in my womanhood. Go ahead. It's your turn. Nice job. And I am confident in my womanhood. Go ahead. It's your turn. And last but not least, I show the utmost gratitude for my womanhood. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this very special podcast episode. I look forward to our next episode, and I will see you soon. Bye.